think healing is a skill. And it's a skill that we are not taught, unless you grow up in this like super holistic family unit and community, which most of us don't, but it's beautiful when people are. It's like we're not taught that. We absorb what has been modeled for us. And that may not be what is ideal for you to thrive or for you to feel well. So we got to like find our way, but we can't find our way if we're not paying attention.
That's true. You got to be aware. Welcome back to another Urban Eden podcast. This is your host, Taryn Lewis. And today I have Selima Lust with us today. Y'all know I got to do my formal introduction. So we're going to get started with our formal introductions. And then we're going to get started with this conversation. So to begin, Selima Harleston Lust is a wife, mother, and co-founder of I Willow Remedy. Passionate about helping people travel the most graceful path from ill to well, Selima bridges the gaps between your body, your consciousness, and your soul's evolution. As a clinical herbalist, medical astrologer, and spiritual teacher, Selima's approach to well-being is rooted in deepening the relationship you have with yourself through plant medicine, proactive self-care, and aligned mindfulness. Her aim is to help people reclaim their power after trauma and heal the root causes of physical pain, illness, and disease. Selima offers a variety of herbal medicine products, workshops, and content that helps adults heal from the inside out. Through I Willow Remedy Signature online mentorship program, Herbal Medicine for the Soul, she teaches adults how to get healthy naturally while addressing the emotional root cause of pain using the Calypso Healing method. Selima currently teaches at Spelman College, the Shift Network, DeKalb County Public Library. Well, she currently teaches at Spelman College. She has taught at the Shift Network, DeKalb County Public Library, Black Urban Growers, Sex Down South, and the NYC Spiritual Herbalism Conference. I Willow Remedy's work has been featured in various podcasts, as well as Yoga Journal, Mother Earth Living, Refinery 29, Exo Nicole, and Well and Good, and then now the Urban Eden podcast. Selima is a proud graduate of Spelman College, getting a BA. She's a Teachers College. Oh, she's also a graduate of Teachers College, Columbia University, the Peace Corps, and Sacred Vibes Apothecary Herbal Apprenticeship. So let's welcome Selima.
Yay.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited too, especially because you're an herbalist. I think everybody who I talked to, I'm like, I think we might have already been like social media friends, but I believe that the first time that I even met you and really knew about you was at the Sacred Vibes, the Sacred Vibes Herbalism Conference up in Brooklyn. That was
like 5 years ago.
Okay, I'm like, was it? I feel like I want to say it was 2016, but I don't think so. It was maybe 2019-ish. When you say 5 years, I think it was 2019. Yeah. 2019 sounds more like it. But I remember seeing you on the panel. I remember you, and I've also stayed in contact with Natasha from Rain and River Apothecary since then. But I remember seeing y'all up on the panel, and I was like, wow, these women are so amazing. Just the herbalism work that y'all were doing. And I was so excited when I even heard that you were already based out of Atlanta, because that's where we came up from to Brooklyn. So without further ado, I know I did the formal introduction, but let's get started, and you tell us what you want us to know about you, just in a brief statement, what you want us to know.
I don't know.
What about me?
I think my bio, makes it sound really serious, and like the healing work sound really serious. And I try to make it light. I try to make it fun. I think that the healing journey is one of the most remarkable paths that we can lead down, and it helps us develop. It helps us know like our purpose and our joy. And so it's really, I think it's joy. That's what I want y'all to know.
Joy.
Is that my work and the foundation of it is really about having all of us reclaim our joy and let's getting the things out of the way about it. So I'm really fun.
Yes.
Although I look not like fun right now. I'm like, I'm actually a lot of fun.
And cool and natural. But I definitely believe that you're fun. And of course, like you said, healing can be fun. Herbalism can be fun. How did your journey begin with herbalism? Because I know we were talking before and you say you're from Connecticut. So like, how did herbalism find you?
Yeah, I do have one of my first plant memories is drinking chamomile tea as a baby or as a young child. My mother would often give me that for digestive complaints. And then I also remember that peppermint in one of the houses that we lived in, peppermint grew so wildly and prolifically that like it was planted in the front of the house and grew all the way underneath and it showed up in the back of the house.
Yeah, mint goes crazy.
Yeah, so those are some of my first plant memories. But I wouldn't say that I was too much involved in it until I got to essentially my own health crisis. So my path or my plan, right? We don't plan the plan. Like my plan was, I was a music major at Spelman. I was in the arts. I had grew up in the arts. And so I thought I was going to be in the performing arts. I was teaching music at one point, teaching in the Peace Corps. I went to Columbia and it was a business degree in the arts. So I really thought that was my path, my plan. And it was really my own health issues that got me started. And it was Tammy, actually, because this is my wife, Tammy. We were, trying to do the traditional route, or I won't call that traditional, the modern route of like you go to the doctor when you have an ailment. But it was just this cycle of like, we're going and we're getting prescriptions and I'm going to the chiropractor 3 times a week. And that's like the plan that you're supposed to follow for the rest of your life. And eventually like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Is it
like,
making you well?
Yeah. I'm like the stuff, the shots, the injections, it's just not working. And I had all of this like digestive issues, really bad periods, all this chronic musculoskeletal pain. And it really hit me on our honeymoon that I was like, I'm falling apart. And I was in my 20s. So I was like, we got to do something else. And it was really Tammy who was like, let's try the holistic route. And from there, it never stopped.
Wow, see, that's beautiful.
It never stopped.
Thankfully, we have partners that come into our lives sometime because I know even for me, I didn't really know anything about holistic wellness hardly until I got with my partner, like they introduced me to herbalism as well. So it was like definitely just an eye-opening experience. So thankful for the people that come into our lives and change them for the better. Okay, so you got into herbalism based off of having like some issues with your health, and you say you were dealing with like gut issues and it's so crazy because a lot of people deal with those types of things. And of course, when you like look back at your diet, sometimes you'll find out like, we eat based off of like just generational knowledge, what we know, what our parents gave us. And then when we're able to kind of make those decisions for ourselves, then we all find ourselves like going the natural route at some point.
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. So when you decided to go into herbalism, how did you like just start reading like self-help books? How did you find your way even into like the Sacred Vibes apprenticeship? Because that was something I was always interested in, was doing that apprenticeship. But I think I didn't do it because they just now started offering it online like a couple years ago. But I was like, I'm not going to New York to do this. I'm in Atlanta, shoddy for real.
Yeah.
But yeah, how'd you get into like the Sacred Vibes and wanting to just deepen your knowledge of herbalism?
Yeah, so once Tammy got us started, and I can really remember it was like that first bottle of like lavender essential oil. And from there we started formulating and researching. And she really was like the researcher. And I was kind of just sitting back and watching her and be like, let's see if this works. And it was working. So then I'm getting on board. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And we had formulated so much for ourselves and it was working and we were feeling so much better. In addition to like, of course, changing diet and lifestyle and moving more. And so we started, my entrepreneurial mind, I was like, we can make a business out of this. And I had already been like wanting to leave the arts and start a business. And it was like, what is the idea that is going to stick? And that was the idea. So we really realized that once we had launched our line, we initially launched with the body care line. I think we have a high level of confidence when we first start.
Like you're gonna come out the gate and it's gonna be the bomb. Yes.
And I think like our products were, but that where the confidence and like the skill level, like I think that there can be a big gap in the beginning. And we kind of realized that like the products are great, but there's a gap in terms of like our skill level, our ability to really understand like how this is working, and it's not just like magic. And so that's when we really realized like we should get a teacher. And we were in Brooklyn by this point. So we met in Brooklyn. About 2 years into our relationship, we started building our business, and Karen was right up the street. And so that was the teacher who was available to us, and we dove right in and kept going. Yeah.
Wow. I love Karen Rose. She's just like, and she just seems like an amazing woman, just from her spiritual aspect and knowledge of herbs and really implementing that. Because, of course, like with herbalism, we can look at a lot of things for face value, and you know how herbs really help us on a deeper level.
So deep.
But the spiritual aspect of it as well is something that makes it that holistic connection. It's not just about, you know, how it can physically help you, but also how it can make you feel mentally, how they can make you feel better spiritually, and then also that these are real plants.
Right.
This is, you know, the remnants of real plants. You're working with real plants to work in conjunction with your body. And learning that in the apprenticeship. How long? It was like 4 years. Was it 4 years?
3 years.
3
Yeah,
years.
so 3 years, 3 levels. And I think people we go into plant work thinking like, I just need this plant to help me with my physical ailment. And so much can completely disregard all of the subtle shifts that are happening mentally and emotionally, spiritually. And so that really is like the heart of herbalism. Like, yes, we will receive physical symptoms or physical symptom relief, but it's really paying attention to what's that internal conversation, like what's happening inside, because those are the shifts that help to lead to the physical shifts.
Yeah, what's happening inside. That's really true. And so how do you help others like realize like what's going on the inside? Because I think sometimes it can be hard. Like even somebody yesterday said, how do I know what's right for my skin? Like, how do I know what skincare products to use? And I was like, I think that sometimes as people, we just become so disconnected and kind of like don't listen to what we need personally for ourselves. Yeah. How do you help to like foster that relationship for people between plants and people and like what you need internally?
Yeah, I tell them like straight up, like pay attention to your body.
It's really kind of
it
like,
really is.
It sounds simple, I guess, but then I guess you might be like looking for this like.
You're looking for a miracle. Yes. We're looking for like something to work very quickly. I think that the more that we understand about our physiology and our bodies, the less likely we are to be fearful and to be manipulated. And I think that's why some of like the fads makes people so much money, because they don't know enough about their bodies. And so if we can slow people down and just like pay attention to how your body is responding, and also recognize that there are some processes in the body that you are not gonna feel. Like people don't necessarily feel the glucose building up in their bloodstream as they're leading towards diabetes. You don't feel that. So let's not have that expectation that if you start taking, our blood sugar baby capsules that help with diabetes, that you're suddenly going to feel the glucose being removed from your system or the insulin sensitivity increasing. So it's like managing expectations, but based on you getting a deeper understanding of what's actually happening in your body. But then I think people also know, I think they know intuitively. And some people would like the science, which is now confirming it, but our bodies respond to every thought we think, literally respond, and that's measurable. And so I think if people paid attention to their emotions, to what they're thinking, and then to their emotional response from that, then you can tell what direction you're headed on. If illness and wellness is a spectrum, you can tell where you're heading based on how you feel. If you perpetually feel bad, that has no choice but to manifest eventually into some sort of physical manifestation.
That's real. That's real. And even what you said about like managing expectations, that's very real, because I think like a lot of times we think that you're gonna get this healing overnight, when it's like it takes time and it takes consistency. And that's one thing that I've learned just even in my journey in herbalism, is that you really have to journey with the plant. You really have to journey with the herb, and you really have to journey with your healing in general. It's not something that is it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. You don't really fully reach this place of like, this is the end. You got to keep going. You got to maintain. You got to stay consistent. And then that's when you'll start to see results. It's similar to working out.
All the things. That's the thing. We don't, and if people can zoom out a little bit sometimes from their own personal experience and like look out and observe other people, nobody gets anywhere without being consistent to the craft or to the discipline. And I think healing is a skill. And it's a skill that we are not taught, unless you grow up in this like super holistic family unit and community, which most of us don't, but it's beautiful when people are. It's like we're not taught that. We absorb what has been modeled for us. And that may not be what is ideal for you to thrive or for you to feel well. So we got to like find our way, but we can't find our way if we're not paying attention.
That's true. That's true. You got to be aware of what you got going on. Got to be aware of the internal and the external and aware of other people around you and what's happening around you. So I want to dial back just a little bit to, so I know you did the Sacred Vibes apprenticeship. And then, so at what point, because I don't know, out of the apprenticeship, do you just start a business from there? Did you start your business from there? Or did it still take some time after you did the apprenticeship to actually establish Iwilla?
That's great. So no, Iwilla was established before we started our mentorship program. And so that expanded our knowledge. And then just speaking about like how plants help us on the subtle shifts, like it was really working with plants that helped me go into healing inner childhood wounds. And that's really what lifted all of the pain. But it's like, I think plants can be really beautiful openers in that way to help us develop the courage to do their deep inner healing work. And so no, I don't think that it's changed now. I mean, that was a really long time ago, but the apprenticeship is not set up where you have to set up a business. We were already in business and continued. Right. And we were doing body care and selling at stores, selling direct to consumer. And life changed in the sense like our aspirations changed. So I started feeling like I want to have a baby. They were going to have, and Niles was coming. He's our son who was showing up in dreams, Tammy's dreams, and also wanting to move out of New York. So all of this like transitioning was happening. And once we made those decisions, we were still in business, but we made those decisions to relocate, return to Atlanta because I went to Spelman. Tammy lived here as well. And that's when we really decided to dive into the internal, like not just body care, but doing ingestibles. So we'd already been formulating them, but not feeling confident enough yet to offer that. Yep. And we decided to retire our body care line and roll with the internal formulations.
I get what you're saying when you say the confidence in that because, of course I do skincare but people always ask like, oh, well, what can I take for my skin? But as I deepen my research and my knowledge, it's like, it really starts on the inside. It starts with the things that you take on the inside. You can drink like teas that can help, tinctures. We know that there's different ingestibles that you could do, but like you said, that confidence because people are taking this on the inside. Like it's different than on your skin, which is like a cosmetic situation, but internally it becomes like that. The food, it becomes, regulated by the FDA and all of that. They want to, stick their nose in because people are ingesting the thing. So the confidence there can be difficult. And then, of course, like herbalism in general, the journey is about like what you've dealt with and how you've learned to heal with plants, but then you want to share that with others. And sometimes I think like a lack of a certification or something can make you feel like, oh, well, how do I like have the confidence to like step out and help others versus, using your experience as well. So, okay, so you guys did the ingestibles. Before I continue on though, I do want to know, where did you get the name Iwilla from? Because that is very like interesting. I've never heard it before. Yeah,
so Iwilla is actually my middle name. Oh. Yeah, and so my full name, Selima Iwilla, means peaceful one who rises. Ooh. And so I hated my middle name growing up. My godfather / uncle / grandfather, like, just one of those figures, like, he said it sounded like it was a disease.
Iwilla?
Yeah.
It sounds like the wind to me. It sounds very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hated it. But when you're searching for a company name, because at one point we were going to choose Brooklyn Remedy, which is actually a company, right? Like somebody has chosen that and done that. But thinking more like globally, like you don't know if you're going to stay in Brooklyn and what's something that's unique that we can trademark and nobody else has. And
That is.
And the
I'm like, I've
meaning
never
behind
heard
it,
that.
like it's an affirmation. When we put it together, it means I will rise.
Yes, your mom. Who gave you the name?
My mother, I know,
mother
my
was on
mother. That's
one.
right. She was on to something.
That was a good one. That was a good one. I like that. Okay, so then y'all had y'all have I Willow Remedy, and I was looking and I saw that you have something called the Calypso Healing method, and I'm very intrigued by what is that? I was like, it sounds interesting. What is it?
Yeah, so that is our signature method for helping people really do that deep emotional healing work in conjunction with doing whatever work that we need to do with our physical bodies. Diet, lifestyle, those things. But how do we do the inner work, especially in between the days, whether you go to church or you see a therapist? Particularly from my background, having experienced, childhood sexual trauma, like you can't predict when a trigger is going to arise, right? It's not going to show up on your calendar and say, I'm coming for you on Tuesday. Like it doesn't happen like that. So how do we maintain our balance and our centeredness in between the care that we may be receiving from other practitioners? And also, like, what does the work look like? So it's an acronym, and it stands for C is check your triggers. A is ask for the lesson. CAL is listen for the answers. Y is yearn for the root. P is pain or purpose. S is step into solutions. I know. And O is outshine your former self. Wow. So it's really trying to take people like through the process of change, through realizing that you have something going on, you have some kind of internal hurt. How do you find out, like, what is it really about? And it likely goes back to a childhood experience. And then how do we begin to change that narrative for you? And that's where, like, pain or purpose is really a question where we have to set a new intention for ourselves, for our lives, for our future. And so that means that we're choosing to heal, hopefully. We're choosing to, whether you're working on boundaries or you're working on not lashing out when you're angry, whatever the ways in which people feel like they want to improve upon themselves, we have to make that a decision to do. And then we really have to be conscious and aware of the next time a situation arises in which we would normally have this response, we have to choose not to have that response. So what does it take to choose to not have that same response? Because if you continue to have the same response, well, then you're not healing and you're not living up to your intention. And then that outshine your fells, right? It's like keep going, just like you were talking about. Like, don't stop. This is not like a finish line. This is a life path. This is a journey. You're always going to have situations in life where you're going to need to find some courage, find some resilience. There's going to be new challenges. It's not necessarily always dealing with like childhood trauma or the things in your past. It's like people are going to pass away. Like there are going to be hurts. So how do you stay on the path so that you can handle the hurts that are coming, that are just a part of, if you live a long life, you're going to have tough experiences.
Yeah, because some people can allow, a lot of times we can allow like trauma and grief to just kind of overtake us, bring us down, and kind of keep us stagnant in a way. So how are you per se, like how are you guys using plants to help people like heal and tap into that trauma and be able to come out on the other side?
Yeah, I think that there's one element in which I let the plants do the work. Like they are the openers, right? And trusting that whenever someone feels resonant with the plant, if you take it consistently and you're paying attention and perhaps you're journaling, you're keeping track of your own progress, you are going to feel subtle shifts. And that's the opener, right? And it's like if you can feel those shifts and you can begin to feel that relief, then maybe you also feel motivated to continue with whatever the dietary changes may be, whatever the lifestyle practices may be, whatever, if you need to leave a relationship. Like I think people need to follow the breadcrumbs of relief. What continues to help you feel better than you felt yesterday? And keep doing those things and not get so stuck in the what ifs. What is going to happen? What is my life going to look like if I leave this person, or if I speak up and I've never spoken up before, or if I leave this job and go into a different career? Don't get caught up in the what ifs, because the plants have already shown you that you're supported. They've already shown you. So if we can remember the evidence of that, and there's so many different ways. You woke up today, you have trillions of cells in your body that are functioning without you needing to direct them. So like you are supported in changing. And so, through like, if we're thinking like a consultation process, that is the long intake, getting all up in people's business,
Right, finding
learning
about
all
them.
about them, including their medical history and like and their mindset. I really need to know what is somebody's mindset. Like where are you in your belief in your ability to heal and that you're supported in doing so. And so, of course, like we're including plant medicine, we're including dietary changes and lifestyle practices, but also like spiritual exercises. Like you got to be able to sit and rest with yourself so that you can hear your own voice. You can hear your own voice. So I really feel like it's all of those things that need to happen in conjunction. And the plants, they open. And sometimes that open can be like, I got immediate physical relief from this. And that's amazing. That it's just like, yes, keep going. And you're also going to get these subtle shifts as well. Because sometimes I think when people are in so much pain, I mean, I've even felt this, where you feel relief, but then you're afraid that it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And so it's like we just focus on the fact that you feel relief. So you already know what you're capable of. Right?
Wow. Yes. Okay. So you already know what you are capable of and continue on in that. Okay. And so once you do the intakes, what are some plants that you work with quite often? Like, are you tailoring the plants to the person based off of the intake, or are there some plants that you just already know that can help to foster that support?
Yeah, it really depends on the person. Like everyone's recommendations are different. I do notice trends in terms of like where people are with their diets and their gut health, that they may need the same formulas and the same like lifestyle recommendations of like, let's deprocess the diet and let's facilitate reducing inflammation and let's facilitate repairing gut health. So there tend to be some trends like that. But if I can also notice when someone is like, in deep burnout or dealing with grief. I had a client who lost her son tragically. He was 23 years old maybe, and that was like her best friend. And so mimosa is my plant for that. Yeah, Albizia julibrissin.
And they're everywhere. They grow everywhere
here. And people don't know. And it's like, think about how prolifically mimosa grows and how much we are collectively dealing with like anxiety and depression and grief and loss and heartache. And it's like, there's medicine literally right here available to us. But so many people don't know that it's available. And so I loved working with that client too, because she was someone who hadn't tried plants before and dealing with this deep trauma and loss of her son. And when she took mimosa, she felt it. And it's so subtle. Like, I microdose mimosa. I don't think people need a full, like, tincture, like, dropper full, 30 drops. Like, nope, just 5. 3 to 5, maybe 10 drops. And she felt it. And it's just like, yeah.
Wow. So it just, mimosa, it looks happy. It looks like a
Right.
happy plant in general. It's pink and it's vibrant. Like you said, there's medicine literally all around for mimosa to just grow. And I saw you making tinctures. Now, I do know, too, that you don't necessarily, based off of just what I see, you are, like, going deep into the formulation, like, you are making sure that you are putting the right amount of ratio of the herb to the solvent or what have you in there. And I'm like, I know for most herbalists, we start off with the folk method, but then even just going deeper and realizing like, the synergy of how plants work together and how they work with the human body or how they work with the physiology of a human. Just understanding that certain ratios really help to, amplify the plant's power as well. And I love that you're doing that work. Then also you talked about something that I also thought was interesting, because I know me recently, like I did IVF. And so in order to do IVF, like, of course, you take the medicines and they alter like your hormones. And I was dealing with like, when I went back to the doctor, I think after like my 6-week checkup, they did like some blood work, and then I had like a overactive thyroid. And so they were like, yeah, you have an overactive thyroid and you lack vitamin D. So she writes me a prescription for like vitamin D, and she's like, go see this endocrinologist. But I think like with my herbalism mind, I was like, I'm not going to the endocrinologist. Like, and I'm vitamin D, like I'm not about to take a capsule for vitamin D when I need to go. That means I need to go outside a little bit more.
Right.
And of course, like there's foods that you could take to help with vitamin D as well. But even like with the thyroid, I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna, take some sea moss or something that's gonna give me like more nutrients and eat eat balancing, hormone balancing food. So I know I saw you talking about like you even offer classes where you help people like take a look at their blood work that they get and then be able to help heal themselves like with herbs, right?
Yeah, I love lab work. And I think one of the intentions behind it was it was helping me skill build. And I was asking clients for their lab work and then, trying to decipher it myself. And then my very good friend and mentor and our medical advisor for our programs, she's a physician, and I asked her to co-teach a class with me on lab work. And now that's also a regular offering inside of our mentorship program, because I really believe like herbalism fills a really important gap in healthcare, in terms of people being able to take care of themselves with responsibly and skillfully at home with plant medicine. And we do need modern medicine for emergency, for interventions. You don't need to set bones unless you live in a super rural area. Like when it's an emergency, go get emergency care. But most people don't know enough about how to help themselves in order to not rely so heavily on modern medicine.
Right.
And so even when people are afraid, they don't want to take the medications, they've been on them too long, they know about the side effects, they don't know this. So it's like, well, that's a big gap. And one of the ways in which we fill that is by teaching also people the language of the modern care. And lab work is so important, especially with the shortages that we have in medicine with doctors and nurses. Like, we're not getting called back. We're not getting to have appointments with just like primary care physicians. And so what do you do when you get your lab work and you don't understand it, but you have all these flags? And the whole thing tells a story. It's not just what's flagged. Like, we really do have to understand the whole panel. But what do? You're just like in this helpless place. And so I wanted to be able to provide a solution for that. So it's helping people understand like the labs that you get with your annual physical exam. And we've gone so far. We've done gut work panels. We've also done like hormonal panels, and we keep a workbook. And it's just practice. It's the same kind of practice, obviously not exactly the same, but like the same practice that physicians have to go through. If you're seeing the same things over and over and over again, you begin to retain it. So we practice like looking at students' lab work, and it's like, okay, if you see you're trending too, if you see that each year like your triglycerides are going up going up going up, well, you don't have to wait until it's out of range. You can do something now to intervene. And then when it is, depending on what it is, right, like if someone doesn't have a thyroid and they are on synthetic thyroid hormone, like, no, there's no alternative for that.
Right.
You need the synthetic thyroid hormone.
Just don't have
you don't have a thyroid producing it, right?
I know my cousin is dealing with that. She said the doctor told her she had thyroid issues, but she said she never even looked in. She just didn't. She let it fall by the wayside, and so now she doesn't have a thyroid anymore. She has to take. So I was like, when she told me that, I'm like, let me make sure I get myself together, because I don't want to have to rely on. Like, I don't want to if I can prevent that. If I could take my healing into my own hands, like. That's what I want to do. Right. And that's pretty much what you're helping people do. You're like, healing is something that is innately in you, and you could take charge of your own healing.
And it's personal. Like, it's personal, and it's like, it's our responsibility. Like, we're the only ones in these bodies.
Right. And you got to live with your body.
You have to live with your body. It should be one of your top priorities. Yeah, that's true. Because it gives you the capacity. When we feel well, then we have the capacity to do all the other things in life that we want to do.
That's true. Yeah. That's just, and even when you were talking, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, we go to the doctor, but I don't know. Maybe some people have different doctors, but I know my doctors don't call me and be like, did you ever get this situation? Like, even my doctor gave me that prescription, the doctor I was seeing at the time, and I haven't heard from that doctor. The doctor hasn't checked in to say, have you been doing this? But that's on me to, just worry about myself and make sure that I do the things that I could do to try to help heal myself. And so that's super important, and that's powerful. I think like even with us having like the business is what we try to have people, you have to be aware and you have to be informed pretty much of, the things that are going on with you, and even be able to like help yourself, and then also be able to help your family as well, those around you.
Yeah, that was the heart of, like, when we think about our ancestors, like, so much was taken care of at home and done well at home, because they didn't have access to physicians. And being a physician wasn't a noble career initially. It became one, and that was deliberate. But it's like if you didn't have access to higher levels of care, you took care of yourself at home. I think we need to return to that. And our medical system is teaching us that we need to return to that too, because that's a whole pipeline. Like, I talk to physicians and you talk about the pressure that they're under in order to see this many patients in a day. That time, it's like we want care, but that system is like, you got 15 minutes.
Right. It's just a constant in and out, in and out.
You got 15 minutes. So the more that system kind of reaches its limits and capacity, we're going to be required to know how to care for ourselves again. It's essential.
And I know that even within another thing that I just through my research is like functional medicine not functional medicine, but like just allopathic medicine. They call it allopathic, right?
I don't think they like being called that, but yeah, it is. I know.
But that type of medicine, that it doesn't necessarily, because like even she was like, okay, well, you have a hyperactive thyroid, but there was no root cause. Like there's no identification of the root. It's like, here, take this medicine and, see if you feel better. But it's like, really, what is at the root of that? Like even when she said, like, I had a vitamin D deficiency, I'm like, okay, you might have thought that you were outside like that, but it's like, well, have I been outside? Have I been getting sunlight? Have I been eating proper foods? Do I need to look at my diet? And I think like sometimes when you get those diagnoses, it's like that should be your first mind most of the time, is like, what is the root cause of this? And I know you said that you help within I Willow Remedy to help people identify the root cause of even like an emotional trauma or, a physical pain that you might be centering. How do you help people like identify that root? Do you feel that you have to like identify it for them, or do you help process them through that?
That's a great question. I think one of the things is that I would love people to be more aware of is that all of our older medical models, from Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, but also within African American spirituality and medicine, every culture prior to like our modern day culture made very clear connections between what was happening in the body and what was happening internally. It is only modern medicine. Like modern medicine is the outlier that completely, separated the body from the mind and the emotions. Now, neuroscientists are starting to catch up with that, and the science is starting to catch up with what we have known for millennia, right? So there's lots of literature that actually is available to help people make these connections. And astrology is an amazing modality for that. Medical astrology is absolutely amazing, and it's so clear. I do think people need to learn a little bit more about physiology sometimes, because we didn't have the diagnoses that we have now. We didn't necessarily have when these systems were first created. But I think part of it is the Calypso Healing method. If you sit with yourself long enough and you are actually in stillness and quiet, you can ask yourself the questions around, what is this really about? What we're thinking about, throat chakra, thyroid, like we know that there could be voice work that has to be worked through. I think there's very clear distinctions, and some of it, we do have this like amazing book. It's called Messages from the Body, and it goes through so many ailments, and the language is it's an interesting language. It's meant to trigger. Like, it's meant to kind of like rattle you a little. Right. Like, but what? Right. But it's like, if you have that emotional response to the passage, then that means that's the one. Like, it resonated. So I think we do both. And like, I think it's helpful for people to see it through different lenses. Maybe that's through, an astrology reading that we might do, through giving them like, well, here's what the passage says, the messages of the body. But look at your life. Like, nothing starts. I don't believe anything starts just like on the physical body. Look at tension begins with how we feel. And so what are those things that are bringing you tension? And think about if that's related. Like, we know what it feels like when an idea or a thought is resonant. And if you can that's why like having some kind of reflective, meditative, quiet practice is essential, so that you can actually feel that subtle shift of like, no, this is my body or my consciousness or my higher self, inner spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, like that's telling me that this is what this is. And that's just another form of confirmation.
And it can be so hard. I think I even talked about this yesterday on another interview, but it could be really hard just even just as Black women, as Black people, to kind of just take that time to like sit
down
with ourselves and to really like listen in. I know even me last week, even me on the personal level, I deal with like, some self-doubt sometimes here or there. And I'm just like you said, it's just like, where is this like stemming from? People on the outside see you as one way, but then they don't necessarily might not know what you're dealing with like internally. And it's just like, well, how do I address this? Because, and where is it coming from? Like you said, where is it coming from? How do I move forward? But even like last week, like after I did like a run or something, I just sat, and it was only for like a few minutes. But then even I looked over to like my right side, and I think even when I sat, I was like, man, I don't know, am I receiving messages? Like, am I listening to the messages around me? But then I opened up my eyes and I looked to the right side, and there's like this plant growing, a random plant in my landscape. Like the landscape is just pine straw and like bushes, but there was this like squash or melon plant, and I haven't been like gardening or anything in about a year or so, but I've been like feeling this like need to garden, but I was like, I took that as like confirmation that I do need to be growing for one, and it just reminded me of growth in general and how growth makes me feel, like how growing a plant makes me feel and helps me to feel in tune with myself. That's why we say even like just having some sort of relationship with plants can allow you to like, it's a mirror in a sense. It can allow you to look at yourself. Am I watering myself? Am I taking care of myself? Am I repotting and realizing when I've outgrown a situation or people, and am I moving into something else? So like it doesn't fit in a box though. It's just so many like different things that you can realize and actualize along the journey and through the relationship with plants. But like you said, the emotion, because even when I'm like I'm talking to you, and I think just with me having like skincare, I just think about like skincare and body care so much, but I'm like the emotions, like how are we dealing with emotions? And even you bringing it up and talking about like working with plants and dealing with your emotions, so much can be resolved in the emotion. We deal with like a lack of confidence because of the way our emotions might make us feel, or things that we might have dealt with in the past, that trauma that could have like dimmed our light, essentially. Dimmed our light. So plants really bring that vibrancy to you, the herbalism, and pretty much through I Willow Remedy, y'all offer like y'all do like tinctures to help. What other healing methods are y'all doing, or herbal methods are y'all doing as well?
So people can receive loose leaf herbs if they know what they need. And then we have our own syrup formulations, tincture blends, capsules, and tea blends.
So Selima, thank you for joining us today. We definitely had a really great conversation about herbs, the emotional connection, tapping into the root cause. Okay, so as far as I Willow Remedy, if anybody wants to check out more of your products or just know more about you, where can we find out more information?
Yes, so our website is iwillowremedy.com, and we're on all the platforms at I Willow Remedy, mostly Instagram and YouTube.
Okay, and you currently teach at Spelman, right? You currently teach African American herbalism?
I'm teaching an Intro to African American Herbalism class for the Chemistry Biochemistry department inside of the Food Studies program. So it's a yearly offering. Just wrapped up one semester, and I think I'll start the next semester in the spring.
Nice. I love that they connected that with the chemistry program and with food, because I mean all of it goes together. So that's really amazing. Okay, and before we leave, is there anything that you want to just bless us with on the podcast? Any last minute information that we might not have covered? Anything?
I just want to encourage people to stay on the path. Please don't ever give up on yourself. Everyone is equipped to heal. We don't all need the same tools, but we all have our requirements, and we just follow our path of keep doing what helps and less of what hurts, and you will feel better.
Keep doing more of what helps and less of what hurts. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Again, it was an honor to have you on here. I have a deep respect for herbalism and herbalists and the work that you're doing. So you keep on doing the work and keep on helping us heal. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, that was another Urban Eden episode in the books. Thank you for joining us today. And until next time, peace.